So if you're viewing this photo, this is 7th Avenue West, just before you go across the bridge into downtown. And this shoot was kind of cool. It was, again, I just sat up. I can't remember which store is out there. I think it's Save On Foods or one of those big chains or something. And again, I was using one of those paper bins, the ones that have the triangle tops on them and they're not level. And I was just using my toque again. I remember being super cold. My hands were frozen as I was trying to set up the camera. I just kept, getting like numb fingers and stuff just because it was so freezing. And I have these Eskimo gloves that I wear that are like mittens, so they don't actually have any fingers, but they do a really good job of keeping my hands warm. But then I can't fiddle around with the settings on the camera, so I'm as quick as possible trying to get the camera set up so I can keep my hands warm. And this particular one, I think it's quite funny because I get people who are in any shoot really when I'm set up and I'm looking at intersections, people will walk in front of the camera and then as soon as they see that I'm like taking a photo, they try I'll get out of the way, and they back up. And it was funny because there was like 5 people standing at the intersection and no one really noticed, I guess, that I had a camera there. But they all like walk up and stop and they're waiting for the light to go, and then one person like turns around and sees me with the camera and and backs up, and then like everybody else was like, oh, he's got a camera, and like everybody just got out of the way. I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, just relax, just I'm not here. Like, it was so funny to see that as they went by. Well, there was one particular guy, I believe his name was Brad, and he was running as the light was just changing. He was trying to get across the intersection, and he was running for the intersection, and the light changed. So he stopped, and he's just kind of and then he turns around and sees me with the camera, and he's standing there for a bit. He doesn't say anything, and he's probably like 10 feet away or something. And then the light changes again, and then he's able to walk across. But instead of walking across, he comes up to me and like, hey, what are you doing? And I just kind of explained it. Oh, I just keep the shutter open, and the cars go by and they create streaks, and it's a lot of fun, and just walk around town, and I'm telling him everything I'm doing, right? And then he starts getting into the story of how he used to be a photographer and how he would go up north and photograph, I believe it was like the great white albino bear, not the polar bear. It's like unique to British Columbia or something like that. And he used to go and photograph these white albino bears that were up north. And he was just telling me how he's in the wilderness, he was out in the forest, and he was pretty much doing the same thing that I was doing. Like, he was hunting, except he was hunting for the moment, and instead of hunting these bears with a rifle, he was using a camera. And he would be out there in the wilderness by himself, like just waiting for these bears to come by, because he would get grizzlies and black bears all the time, but what he was really after was the thrill of finding that white albino bear. And then he started getting into the time when he was sitting in the bushes and sure enough, he was there for a few hours and waiting for all these bears to come, and he found one as it did start to walk by, and it was funny because he had 3 bears that were there, like 3 black bears, and then this white albino bear, and the white albino bear looked at him, and they weren't that far away, maybe like 100 yards or something, and for some reason the bears started making their way towards him. So he's sitting here just like sitting fat, dumb, and happy, getting all these shots of these bears, and for some reason the white albino bear came basically within a couple of feet of him, like he could have reached out and touched him. And he said it was one of the most special moments of his life, like getting so close to this bear that he could feel it, like he could feel its energy, and and smell it and just like be completely in the moment. And for some reason, he was telling me how he just wasn't scared. He was so enchanted by this moment of this having this bear come up to him that he could have touched it if he wanted to, but he didn't. And it was just so cool seeing him talk about all this neat stuff he was doing. So we started getting into other things about he had a business and how to sell the photos and all this sort of stuff. And at this point, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with the photos. Like, I was just out having fun. Like, I'm running around town, like getting dirty and down on the ground and looking up at this and looking up at that and shooting off of garbage cans and all these like newspaper racks and chairs and just anything that the camera would sit on, I would be shooting off of, right? And because I didn't have a tripod, I just had my toque, so I just had to improvise. I mean, most of the time it was off my backpack too, so I would just set up my backpack on the sidewalk and then like kind of prop the camera up and just take these shots. So I didn't really have like a purpose behind the shots. It was just like go out and shoot, right? And so we started talking about that, how we used to sell the photos, and do you want to have a gallery and like doing this and that, and I just I don't really know, and I don't really want to think about it. Like, I'm just having fun, And I think one of the coolest things that I've ever bought was a remote shutter, because all the time that we're sitting here and talking is when I'm getting these shots, the shot that you're looking at right now. The whole time we're talking, I'm just clicking the remote shutter. So every time I hear the shutter open or close again, I would just click it again. So I would set up the camera and get everything ready so that all I had to do was wait for the moment for something to happen so I could just take a shot. And it's really neat. Like, I could just completely not even care about the camera, because half of the fun was taking the camera or taking the card and going back and putting them on the computer and looking to see what kind of shots I would get, because I have no idea what these shots look like. Like, I can look at them on the display on the camera. However, you can never really tell if they're in focus or if they're balanced and like all this sort of stuff, or if they just look right. Because sometimes I've had shots where I'm looking at the display on the camera and I go, wow, that's such an amazing shot, like I'm so excited, and then I look at it on the computer and it's actually not it's out of focus, and it just doesn't look right, and blah blah blah. And then I've had other shots where I'm looking at it and I'm just like, oh, that's nothing special, and then I take it back and I put it on the computer and I'm like, holy, like, look at this and look at that, like that's and that and that and that, like, and there's so many things that line up that I never noticed when I'm looking at the display. So just anything can happen, right? So that's the exciting part, is I would just sit there and click the shutter button while we're sitting there and talking. So I had no idea what these photos look like. And then when I saw the one that I actually printed, it's just like, wow, like, look at that. It just looks so cool, and especially putting it on aluminum, like, it just shines, and it's like hypnotic looking at it. It's so much fun. Like, who knew cars could do that and look so cool? And I just have this thing about the street lights and the street signs and stuff, because it is the city, and it's something that, when you drive by, you can see the sign and then say like, oh wow, that's what this area, that's where that photo came from. Like, that's, oh, I could just imagine it, or wow, like how did that happen, and how did that line up? And it's almost like a space and time, like when these streaks go by, because the streaks are the cars going by. So you can see where the cars began and where they end. So it's like a moment in time, except not a single moment. It's a moving moment. It's very cool. So that was pretty much it. And yeah, and I just loved hearing his story, and and then loved looking at the photos that I got after it. It was cool.